Stephen A., what's wrong in Chicago?
They're not good enough, and they're not committed, and they don't have the direction that they need to have in order to be a quality team. Everybody knows that I know Dwayne Wade pretty well. We haven't spoken about this particular incident in question, but when he decided to go to the Chicago Bulls, he and I had a discussion because I said, what the hell are you going there for? I know it's your hometown. If you're going to leave Miami, you want to go home to play because you're from Chicago. I get that. But all they have is Jimmy Butler. He swore they had more. They don't. And the reason why they don't is because they pushed Tom Thibodeau out the door. John Paxson is the executive for the basketball operations. Gar Forman is the general manager. I am not here to question their competency in terms of basketball. I am here saying that they allowed their personal feelings to get in the way of their professional judgment as it pertains to the game of basketball, because clearly Tom Thibodeau has no business being gone from Chicago in favor of Fred Hoiberg. Now, to be clear, if you recall, Max Kellerman, Jimmy Butler saying what he said, which was marching in lockstep with Dwayne Wade, those two clearly are on the same page. I'm here to tell you that Jimmy Butler said the same thing last year. If you recall, he called out the coach, Fred Hoiberg, at the time, literally said that the coach needs to step up and hold guys accountable. It's a travesty that that was not being done. Well, what are they saying now? They're essentially saying the same thing. You can have the Jerry and Grants of the world and others talking about they play hard every minute, every night. Some dude named Zipzer or whatever the hell his name is, launching ill-advised three-pointers and all of this other stuff. Morodich, another individual, doesn't seem as committed. But to me, it goes back to the passive Fred Hoiberg, which ultimately forces you to go back to Paxson and Gar Forman. Why? Because nobody's questioning the basketball acumen of Fred Hoiberg, who was coaching at Iowa. But the bottom line is that he comes across as too passive, hesitant, if not fearful, to get in anybody's face and hold them accountable. And this is the guy that Gar Forman and Paxson wanted. And as a result, you push Tom Thibodeau out the door, who was universally recognized as one of the great coaches in basketball. So when we look at it from that standpoint, there's no question that Tom Thibodeau came up short in terms of having 5 years and never getting you to a finals or anything like that. He wasn't flawless, but he was certainly better than Hoiberg. Everybody could see that except Paxson and Forman, who didn't appear to care because their priority was their relationship or lack thereof with Tom Thibodeau, as opposed to looking at the fact that you need a quality coach up in there to lead this franchise, and that is why they're suffering now, along with the players not being held accountable, and that leans on Hoiberg, and that's why Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler have spoken up the way that they have.
What happened to the Chicago Bulls? This, number one, is an easy one. Derrick Rose got hurt. I mean, that was the guy that they were supposed to build around, and justifiably. He was Rookie of the Year, MVP, when he was like 12 years old, even though LeBron deserved it that year as usual. But still, Rose was playing on an incredibly high level. And the next year before the injury, I thought he was playing as more of a point guard, really, understanding the position even better than when he won the MVP. Then he gets hurt, and he never gets back to what he was. And the Bulls, at that moment, had a choice to make. Do we scrap this whole thing and rebuild? That was the correct choice. Or do we try to make something up on the fly here? And they didn't want to go through the process of stinking for several years again. And so they decided to try to do it on the fly. And one of the guys you bring in is Rajon Rondo. Mistake. Rondo, was a brilliant player once upon a time, simply does not shoot well enough, nor get to the free throw line, to be successful in the modern NBA. I said it was a mistake at the time. I didn't think he was very good last year with the Kings. He's been terrible this year, and everyone who said, no, Rondo's good, have been proven wrong. Not good. And that was a mistake. And the team has not been put together properly because they wanted to just try to see if they could make something work instead of rebuild. Now, the next thing. Thibodeau, you bring up, Stephen A. I'm not as high on Thibodeau as many. I understand the frustration eventually. Look, he played the players too many minutes in the regular season. They were playing kind of with too high a motor at times. I thought they were burnt out by the playoffs, although truth be told, they probably weren't good enough because they didn't have either you have LeBron James or you don't in the East especially. And so those who said, no, you're going to be happy you have Thibodeau, don't get rid of him, kind of like Schottenheimer once upon a time, or maybe like Marvin Lewis, Stephen A. He at least makes the playoffs every year. You might get kind of sick and tired of that, but you have more success than many. Sure enough, Thibodeau leaves, it falls apart. The people who said, no, you believe me, you like Thibodeau, wait until he's gone, have been proven also right so far. It did fall apart. They are lacking intensity. And that's what happened to the Chicago Bulls. Rose gets hurt. They refused to rebuild. They brought in old veterans who weren't good enough anymore to pair with Jimmy Butler, to put together with Jimmy Butler. And then they got rid of a successful coach whose intensity made that team probably better than it had a right to be.
You're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. Because all of those points you made are totally irrelevant to the conversation in question. The conversation in question as it pertains to Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade calling out players. All of those things you said have nothing to do with them saying these guys aren't working hard. They don't seem to care.
You didn't hear me talk about Thibodeau?
That is different. What I'm saying to you is that those guys bringing that up, that don't have anything to do with Derrick Rose getting hurt.
Yeah, that's the genesis of everything, actually.
Not at all. Not at all. Because there's plenty of guys. Dwayne Wade has been on average teams before. Jimmy Butler has been on average teams before. You've heard them complain about a lack of productivity. You've never heard them call out teammates' effort.
Well, Thibodeau was no longer the coach. He made sure guys played with intensity.
You don't need Thibodeau to be the coach in order to have a coach that demands effort. See, efficiency and productivity is one thing, but effort is another. Directly Hoiberg seems to be so passive that nobody fears accountability. That's a different problem.
Sure. He's not Thibodeau. I get it. Not everyone is intense like that. But another thing
doesn't have to be Thibodeau.
When people saw this combination, Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler, Rajon Rondo, most people in basketball raised their eyebrows and said, how's that going to work? Now, I was one of the people who thought, you know what? This is going to be interesting at least. Maybe it somehow does work. No, it doesn't. Conventional wisdom was right about this. That was a terrible combination. It's demoralizing to the team, to the players, to the franchise, and to the city. It didn't work because they ain't good enough anymore. I mean, that's the big thing here.
No, it isn't.
We got to agree to disagree, guys, because we got to keep it moving. Coming up next, the Pro Bowl has certainly lost some of its luster over the years, but fear not, Max Kellerman has